strategic autonomy, does it really come into practice? Because the signals go out to the other side that it's not okay. And in a multipolar world, post-Cold War, post-unipolar world, now in this fractious world that we are in, is that strategic autonomy acceptable to anybody?
The overwhelming majority of the international community practices and advocates strategic autonomy. It is the Americans who have created this scenario of a possible new Cold War, where either you are with us or against us. The background is very clear. After the Cold War was over, you had a unipolar world order, and the United States was the hegemon. But much has happened since then. The United States has lost credibility due to its misadventure in Afghanistan and in Iraq and in Libya. They are no longer that credible power that they used to be when they were asserting hegemony. In the meantime, other players have entered the global scenario. You have got China, which is challenging the Americans in various areas, particularly with regard to economy and technology and logistical connectivity. And you have various other countries roughly referred to as middle powers, which are important in their region and are asserting a role for themselves in that regard, in their region. So this is why we call it a multipolar world order, where a large number of countries, usually middle powers, are seeking to assert their point of view and their role in world affairs. And the days of hegemony are done. Okay. Now, this scenario is not a new Cold War. It is basically the rise of a multipolar order. Within the multipolar order, countries assert strategic autonomy. I know that very often when you use a term, it becomes a little boring, it becomes irritating. You see, earlier we used to use the term non-aligned movement. That term meant more or less the same thing, but it had resonance at that time because you had the East and the West. Correct. The Western Alliance and the Eastern Alliance, Soviet Union and the United States. So you were non-aligned. You were not part of one or the other. Once the Cold War was over, it made no sense to be using this term, non-aligned. So scholars started using the term strategic autonomy. When Dr. Jaishankar became the minister, he started saying that, look, let's go beyond strategic autonomy and come up with some other words. So he started talking about plurilateralism, minilateralism, etc. Rather than say strategic autonomy, which means I'm independent and I will take decisions on my own, we are setting up in a positive construct relationships with certain countries which are informal, which are subject-oriented, and they are based on informal consultations, and we take positions which serve our interests. Minilaterals, plurilaterals. You can use any terminology you wish. Why I use strategic autonomy? Because strategic autonomy says precisely what I wish to imply. And that is, I am an independent state. I want to take decisions on my own. I will not be influenced by decisions of other countries. I will take decisions in my national interest. That's what I'm asserting. Overwhelmingly, the international community is doing precisely that. Unless there are countries that are aligned with the Americans, Japan and Korea and Australia and the European Union, even there they have differences. Right. But those are differences within the family. But what the Americans have been saying, now you don't know too much about Donald Trump, but I'll say the Americans in general, what they have been saying is that going close to Russia or to China challenges them and that so-called liberal world order. The countries don't believe that. We are not challenging anybody. The days of hegemony are gone. You have to accept that as a reality and get on with it.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching ANI podcast with Smita Prakash.
अगर हम उसको मस्जिद कहेंगे तो फिर विवाद होगा.
The issue is टूटा है क्या भारत?
400 पार का मतलब ये है कि संविधान खतरे में है.
क्या हम लोग ये निर्देश देते हैं कि फला को गिरफ्तार करके जेल डाल दो?
वही तो कह रहे हैं सब।
ये बेबुनियाद निराधार आरोप।
सच्चा सुनना चाहो देखो स्मिता प्रकाश ANI, it does not lie.